Hello, good evening. Hi Kritika, hi Radhika, hi Kirtana, hi Vidya, hi Swarna. Oh, hi. Kritika, I went out. I didn't have time to wear a sari, so I'm not in my usual avatar. Hi, I'm just going to. Thank you, Smriti. Thank you, Kirtana. I'm going to invite. Oh, thanks. Film reviews. Yes, I'm enjoying them too. Hi Radhika. Just waiting for Karthik to join this conversation. Karthik, are you here? If yes, could you just send me a request? Yes, there you are. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Akila.
Thank you so much, Karthik, for taking time off your schedule to be in conversation with me. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I must tell you that I've been like nearly almost stalking you on social media for the last 1 year. And I've been really in admiration and awe of all the fantastic posts that you've been sharing, truly with so much honesty. So this is a very special conversation for me. And Karthik, I'm going to skip introducing you formally, reading your bio, etc., because I'm sure that most people here know you. So please allow me the luxury to kind of skip that.
Please do that. I hate that part the most. So thank you for skipping that.
All right. Karthik, so, I want to set the context for this interview. And we
Yeah.
titled this session Humanizing Art. And
Yes.
just this morning, when I was gearing up for my interview, I recalled an interview that an ex-colleague and friend of mine called Ram Kumar and I did with T.M. Krishna. And in that interview, we asked Krishna a question saying, what is the purpose of art? And
Okay.
Krishna said, I'm going to read out his response because it might set the context for what I intend to sort of, talk to you
Sure.
about.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
He said, art is a construction by humans for humans to become aware of themselves. It is a celebration of the human mind, a marvel that we conceived of and created so many different ways of reflecting, of tapping into the abstract within, and thereby deepening our awareness of ourselves. Art offers both the artist and the audience a window into humanness. I want to start off, this is what he said on the purpose of art. And I thought this is a perfect sort
Yeah.
of,
Beautiful. Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So I want to start off, Karthik, really by talking to you about, I saw in one of the posts you have spoken about the identity of a ragam.
Yeah.
And you have likened raga to a character. And you
Yeah.
said how different ragas behave in a different context, behave in
Yes.
different contexts. So
Yes.
I'm really also intrigued by people like you who have eclectic personalities. You're a musician, a writer, a theater actor, director, and also had a stint in television. I want to ask you, does your personality manifest itself differently or behave differently across these different contexts? What determines that behavior? Is it the context? Is it the content? Is it the audience? Is it the framework? Or is it the freedom?
Okay. That's quite a deep question. Uh, I think I do like in the terms of form and content. Obviously, it will be different when I approach different mediums. But behind all of that, the soul is same. Okay, so for me, till some extent, I think, and I think age has to do a lot with it. I just turned 40 a month ago,
I know.
and even though people kept telling me that 40 is does something to, I was like, what does a Georgian calendar has to do
I
with that?
agree.
But it actually does something. And for me right now, it's all about purpose. So for me, it has really become about purpose and what art means to me. So that underlying factor is the same in all these aspects for me. So when I want to delve into theater, or when I want to delve into music, or into writing, everything, for me now the purpose has to be establishing a connect through storytelling. So that is the that is what is my calling. I feel that
Right.
I'm a storyteller basically, and I tell stories of one person to another person, and I like to build bridges between people. So that is what I like doing,
Right.
and so that remains constant across all the forms. But yeah, the
Right.
character has to change, I think, because when I come to a classical music performance, so I coexist with what is there currently today, with a lot of history that comes with it, the politics that surrounds it, and everything. So the way I behave in this environment is slightly different from the way I behave in theater, which is more democratic according to me. The way I see it, the way the
Correct.
interactions happen, and
Sure.
it's more open. So I have to mold myself according to these requirements, and yeah, the character keeps changing, but only on a surface level. From inside, I think it's the same.
Yeah, that's a very
And
interesting point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Karthik, see, you've also talked often about the idea of interconnectedness, of a sense of overlapping, of one thing segueing into another. Now, it
yeah.
isn't easy to get out of the trappings of framework that each of these roles assigns us with. So, for example, you talked about how being a classical musician assigns you a certain role. A theater director brings with it a different kind of thing. I want to ask you, when did you really free yourself from these trappings, come into your own, and really become comfortable and confident in your own skin? When did that sort of shift happen? Because that's also a process, right?
It's a huge process. It's a huge process, and I think basically life lessons actually sometimes push you your put in certain positions where you actually learn to behave in a certain way, and then you look back at what you've done, and you laugh at yourself and say, no, this is not what I am. So initially I was trying to box myself. It's like I'm
Mm.
going to be a Carnatic musician,
Mm.
and then I started feeling very suffocated in that space, because
Yeah.
it's a beautiful space. I have no complaints about that space,
Yeah.
but I am not this person who is going to be boxed in one genre. So I like to be everywhere. I like to be scattered. I don't mind being a jack of all and master of none. I don't mind being that. I'm like, more the prettier. I'll get to interact with more people from more fields. So let me do whatever I have to say. If something of value is there, it'll stay. Otherwise, not. Anyways, nothing is permanent. So let me just dabble in whatever I feel like. If there is a calling, I go and connect to it. Having said that, when you talk about interconnectedness and overlapping, uh, see, there was a point when I did indulge a lot in spirituality, and then there was a time when I had to stand out of it and force myself to look into material aspects of life, and then struggle with what spirituality was asking for me to do, and this struggle was constantly going on. Then I wrote a play which was about gender, so in which characters keep traversing through genders and talk about gender itself. So when I was writing that play, I thought of using quantum physics as a base to write that play. So I did a lot of research in quantum physics, and I love physics, by the way. So I did a lot of research on quantum physics, and I used Heisenberg's principle, chaos theory, and all these parts. And I wove that into the story of Mahabharata and a contemporary story. So it is like a total, mix up. So when I was creating some scenes in that, I wanted to bring to form certain physics laws. So theory of relativity, Heisenberg's principle, uncertainty, all
Mm.
these. So when I wanted to write that without using the jargons of physics. So in plain Kannada,
Mm.
I wanted to do. I wrote two, three scenes, and when I went back and read that, one scene felt like Bhagavad Gita, and one felt like I'm reciting a verse from Dakshinamurti Stotra of Shankaracharya,
Mm.
and one felt like Ishopanishad, Katopanishad, and I'm like, wow. So, like, are they all trying to say the same things? And actually, everybody is trying to search for the same abstract things as humans. But we try to clutch on to something and we believe that this is the only truth. And that is where we falter. When we say, no, this is the only truth and this is what I. No, I think freeing yourself from needing to hold on to one path and say, no, I am right and this is the only thing. And when you look around, I think everything starts to seem like one. That, and also, I had a lot of struggle with my identity. as a classical musician, I'm a queer artist. I'm very openly,
Yeah.
uh, uh, embracing that identity of mine today. But it was not like that for me. I'm from a very staunch Brahmin family, and not from a very privileged family. So middle class, and these struggles were always there. But at some point, I start feeling that anything I do is not authentic unless I am authentic as a person. And if I'm not authentic, then what is the purpose of all this, faking with art and, doing this foolery about bhakti and
Divinity.
paramatma and Vishnu? Yeah, with all that, unless I'm authentic. So for me to be authentic, I need to come and lay myself bare open and yeah, take in. If people want to throw stones at me, throw. I don't care. I'm what I am. If you love me, love me. If you hate me, hate me. But this is what I am. And when I did that, when I removed that curtain out of me, then it gave me a sense of freedom and the kind of confidence that I didn't have all these 40 years in my life. So that kind of confidence is amazing, and now I feel like I don't have to care. I just want to be saying the truth, and if it's politically wrong, it's okay, because 2 years down the line, people will not even remember me probably.
Yeah.
So why should I take myself so seriously?
No,
That's
absolutely.
as artists, I always say this, that we are all narcissists. So this narcissistic complex is there in every artist, how much ever they may deny it. And because of this complex, there are sometimes we take ourselves so seriously and everything that we do so seriously that we get lost in this, cage of our own doing. And I feel like I needed to break out of that and I just need to fly. So my identity, when I embrace that, that actually pushed me off the peak, and I'm slowly getting wings now. I'm slowly learning to fly. It's
Yeah.
a big sky. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really interesting point. I wanted to ask you this question later on, but since you made a reference to the idea of laying bare, I want to
Yeah.
go back and refer to yet another aspect from my interview with Krishna. There's so many
Huh.
things that you write and so many things that he said sort of, struck a chord with me. He talked to me about, the one other thing about your posts, Karthik, from what I'm reading, is that the metaphor of pain really shines through all your posts. That you don't shy away from speaking of pain, both professional and personal. And I remember when we interviewed Krishna, we asked him about the idea of vulnerability. And he said, similar to what you said, he said, I don't like using words like getting lost in the context. In art and in life, you may not know where you're going, but you can be very aware of where you are. Doesn't that make you very vulnerable? I asked him. Okay. So he said, yes. And vulnerability is the essence of art. It is about moving outside your comfort zone and allowing yourself to become vulnerable when you do that. I like to call it free fall, he said. So I'm going to ask you, Karthik, in your experience, have you had these moments of this free falling? And why do you think that vulnerability is so crucial to art?
This is something that I've been meditating upon, okay, for quite a while now, because uh, we may talk about love, we may talk about bhakti, we may talk about so many things that we do in art today. What is all of it? It's all your journey of understanding something, because some pain is leading you somewhere. So when Shankara says, Iha samsare bahudustare, that is when you ask for kripaya pare pahi murare. So that bahudustare is very important for him. So this pain is something that always opens your eyes and it teaches you what it is to be human. So like what our title says. So humanity actually, there's a wonderful quote, I can't remember, it's from a famous writer. So it says that even in Kannada literature, it's often mentioned
Okay.
that all houses, have different reasons to laugh. All families have different reasons to laugh and celebrate, but they all cry for the same things. So
Wow, so powerful.
yeah, yeah. So in pain, I think we are one. Now, just from
Universe.
the past year, if you just take,
Yeah.
it was one humanity throughout the globe which came to a standstill because of a pandemic. And I could relate to people in the US and Spain, in Italy, in China, everywhere, because we were all going through the same pain of being locked down inside our houses in this fear of, disconnecting from one another. And this pain, made us feel like this one family throughout the globe. So this pain is very important, and pain is something that actually connects everybody. And that is what art, I think for me, when I sometimes think, how did, how was music born or how was art born? I randomly think if you go out of the, theories of Natya Shastra and the Vedas were dropping from the sky and all that, when you just think, for me, it's just an image of some, Aboriginal tribal who's alone, who's just sitting and looking at the sky and just shouting in pain. And that is probably how music began. That is in my head. That is how it is. So when we talk about pain, and when I'm talking about my pain to somebody, like I said, authenticity is important. And in that moment of authentic, in trying to be, we can't be authentic yet. We always hold something back, and it's not so easy, But when we always try to be authentic, there is this moment when we are definitely vulnerable. And vulnerability is so much important, because when you're not so, like when you asked me today, should I send you the questions in advance? I said no. I wanted to be vulnerable, because in my vulnerability, my truth will come. Otherwise, I'll compose my answers and all that, and then I'll feel like I'm a cheat. It's all I did was cheating. So I like to be vulnerable. I always push myself to be vulnerable, because that is where I think some sort of truth, at least the momentary truth, comes and it opens itself in front of me.
No, absolutely. I can't agree with you more, Karthik. Do you think in some sense that social media as a platform, as a vehicle, has really enabled people to be vulnerable and allow, a larger universe to see the human side of artists? Would you agree?
Definitely.
I feel that for sure.
Yeah, because we were always, where did we have the opportunity to come across as human beings? We come to a stage, we are in a silk dhoti, clad in that, and people just see a glimpse of that and we vanish. Now through social media, you can see somebody cooking, you can see somebody adopting a dog. Some artist like TM Krishna is talking to dogs outside his gate, street dogs, and fighting with them. These moments are so beautiful, and that kind of connect wouldn't have happened without social media. And one more beautiful thing about social media, I was having an interaction, director's interaction with Columbia University sometime back, and Anne Bogart, a very famous director. So she was telling me that she was irritated, like most of the artists that we see today were irritated with all the performances happening in life. She was like, why is this happening? Why are so many people coming and dancing from their homes and they're this thing? There is no aesthetics, nothing, and all that. And then it occurred to her that maybe this is how they're all mourning.
Sure.
Maybe this is how they are mourning the lack of space, lack of human connect. Artists are mourning in front of. I did a 48-day series in my YouTube every day morning. I needed something to come and speak on the phone. I didn't care who saw, who didn't see, but that was actually, when I look back, it was my way of mourning and staying connected through art. And I wanted to do something. I'm not a health worker. I don't have the means to go and give money and do something. So I wanted to do something to the universe. So
Absolutely.
Okay, I just sit in front of my camera and sing. And that is how I mourn, and that is how I do something. So I think social media is like a boon as much as it is a curse, but I think it's more of a boon. It's left to how we use it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And somehow, I guess, because it has opened for us the window to the world, I feel like our voices, especially Instagram, are not just heard by people who have preconceived notions about who we are, right? It's really to the world, and sometimes strangers who don't know you, right? And I somehow feel that there is a certain, I don't know, I feel like just the sort of the anonymity also gives you a certain sense of freedom.
Yes. Definitely. Because there is no pretense when the person is there, other person is somebody you've not met, you don't know, and you don't care for his judgment. And even they don't have anything to, they don't have to face you. So they can be very free, and you can be very free. And that freedom is very important for communication.
Absolutely. Karthik, I want to ask you, how do people have the opportunity of seeing the human side of Karthik on stage? How do you go, for example, beyond the art? Is it a conscious or an unconscious process to allow yourself to sort of negotiate the erotic and the exotic and wade through all of that to actually emerge as a human and be able to translate that experience for the common, audience?
It is a conscious experience. It is a conscious effort
Yes.
that I think I had to take, because that is how I felt like I could do something that I wanted to do. And I'm not usually, we artists, we are already doing something that people want to do, want us to do. Which
Correct.
formula will work?
Yeah.
What will appeal? So where can I get applause? Okay, if I do this, music academy will accept me. Otherwise, they will not. So we are always molding ourselves for somebody other's acceptance. So I didn't care, because thankfully I did not become a star. I was not a star in as a vocalist or as a writer or something. I'm just a mediocre artist. So for me, I have this freedom to be who I am without having to worry about my career falling or breaking. I'm just hanging in there in a
Yeah.
loose thread. So it doesn't matter. So I have the privilege, I can say, to make this conscious effort and to open myself up. And I make this conscious effort to, as much as possible, uh, you know, put my soul out there and show the human side of me, even when I'm singing, or even when I'm doing a play, or I'm writing something. I try to keep it as human as possible, because for me, that is the only way I can be authentic.
Right. And do you feel that when you sing something, you have to first like learn to like feel it, like, it has to first kind of speak to you?
Oh, definitely, definitely. As you know, there are sometimes when we work with dancers, they change the compositions in the last moment, and they give us one day in between. I feel like I'm such a cheat, or I feel like I'm not doing justice to it. So, as opposed to somebody who gives you 3 months or 2 months at least in advance, some composition, and you just listen to it, practice it once, and just live it and let it simmer back in your head. And someday, when you're traveling in a cab, that composition comes back, and suddenly you connect to that composition, and you have something personal with that composition at that point. And that is when I think I can really do justice to that composition. It has to speak, it has to let me, the composition has to let me, every kriti, every javali, every poetry, every abhang, it has to let me into its world first. And then I'll start doing things I want. It's like I go inside the house and I do the interiors the way I want and say, okay, this is my house now. So, but it has to open its doors, and I have to wait, I have to patiently wait outside till it does that.
Right. Lovely.
Yeah.
Karthik, I want to ask you a question, going back to the idea of vulnerability. And I want to ask you that by the process of vulnerability and in a sense sharing it, do you
Hmm.
also think it allows you the possibility of constantly discomfort yourself, taking out of your comfort zone? In a sense, when we address the human within, we also end up resonating with a larger universe. Because after all, inherently, we're all connected, right? And we all see that we are different. We are in a certain way similar. So I want to ask you about that. How that confronting your vulnerability also you constantly come out what we all create for ourselves, these comfort zones, right?
Uh, uh, it is actually, that is the process for me. Everybody has a process for me, so that is the process of putting myself into this place of discomfort, from where I can learn new things. So for me, like right now, post lockdown, I got a grant, and I had the fortune. I'm learning Hindustani music from
Okay.
basics. Okay, so when I do that and feel like a beginner and study that form, and then through that window, I get to see the form that I've been learning for so many years. And now I have a new way of looking at my own form, which I thought was mine. And the way this is, so this is in terms of form, in terms of content, in
Hmm.
terms of content. Now, I just sat and saw the migrant laborers walking, okay, from my privileged seat at my home, in from my laptop, from my internet, from my 3G, and eating some fruit at that time with this
I
comfort. I'm feeling very bad for them. But then at that moment, I feel like, what am I doing? What am I doing? So if I tell their story, am I selling their sadness? So do I
Yeah.
have the right to sell their sadness? No. So then what? So that moment of discomfort, it also throws light on my privilege. And in that moment, I try to find a common chord between me and them. And this journey, when did I feel like this? So at some moment, I was also a minority person, and I have been kicked out of some places from where I had to walk, not knowing where I'm going. So
Mm.
I resonate this journey with that journey, and if I have to empathize with them, I tell my story. I do not,
Try to
tell
say.
their story and appropriate them, but I tell my story. And through that, I resonate with their pain. And that is how I think this discomfort actually pushes you in trying to be more and more authentic or truthful.
No, that's a very, very extremely valid point about sadness. But I want to go back to another question that I, had about um, observing and internalizing. Integral to the idea of process. Talk about how you came into your own and freed yourself, but integral to that idea of process itself is the idea of Riyaz. Time I say Riyaz, I think of Prachi because of the things that she did. Hi, Prachi. So the idea of rigor, practice, of certain observation and a certain internalization. Now, I want to, Karthik, because I'm a bit curious about when you sing, are you
Hmm.
able to observe and internalize at the same time? And why are these bursts of internalization really crucial for art growth?
Uh, uh, when I, yeah, see, observation is very important.
Hmm.
So it's sometimes like when I'm singing or practicing, I don't differentiate between the two. For me, both are the same. So sometimes singing at home is like those are the moments that I remember more than on any stage or any moment that I've gotten applause. And I'm sitting alone at home in the morning with my tanpura and just singing. Those are those moments that make me feel like okay, this is all worth it. So there are those moments. So when I'm doing that riyaz or when I'm performing, it's like an out of body experience where I think like an artist I split myself. It's like a matrix movie, if I can use it. I split myself, and one part is observing me and one part is observing my environment, and at the same time, uh, initial level of learning art, you are wasted on your technique. You're wasted on your technique, and you invest a lot, and once that technique becomes body memory, then what is left? What is left? So there another search begins. So you start searching within that technique, my identity, my story, and so you start observing yourself. And once you have found, okay, this is what I want to be, then you start looking around and wonder, what are they wanting from me, and what am I saying? So you observe, and you observe yourself and you observe outside. And when you're doing this simultaneously, at that moment, there is this bridge, like I say, between me and them. And that is the moment when that internalization happens and you feel one. And it does not happen very often. It
Mm.
takes time. Before the bridge is constructed, it breaks away.
Yeah.
Or, there is some moment when you want to be just silent and somebody claps. And maybe at that moment, the clap actually broke your spirit. And you just wanted them to be silent, probably,
Silence.
Yeah. And it broke. But at that moment of internalization, you know that what you are and what the audience are or any listener are is the same. We are in the same plane. We are one, and we are both feeling this universal pulse at one time. And I think that's the most beautiful event. And that is what, as we artists, we all strive for. It is
Mm.
for that one moment.
Mm.
None of the no money, no award can do that one moment, that of connection. It is that moment that we are always searching for, I think,
Right.
that moment of internalization and that connect.
Fantastic. You talked about silence, Karthik. I want to ask you, what is your relationship with silence? I love to ask artists about the importance of silence, because and silence, and I mean not just physical silence, like just silence around, also silence within? Because sometimes, our heads are so full of like all kinds of noise, right? How do you silence that noise, internal noise?
Uh, I grew up in Kurk. Okay,
Oh,
so till my 12th, I was in Kurk,
oh wow.
the heart of Kurk. So I was not a very communicative person as a child. So I was very lonely, and there were certain issues in back at home because of which I needed a lot of lonely time.
Okay.
And even though I had siblings, there were times when I had to be alone at home.
Oh,
So at these moments, I would just walk. And there is a place in Markera where I grew up in Madikeri. It's on top of a hill. There is a spot where you just see, and there are endless plains of hills, and you see the sky and the mountains meeting. So I would just sit at that and stare and talk to it. I used to talk to it. Then for some 2 years during my graduation, when I stayed in Chennai, I would go to the beach in the night and stay in the beach and see the the daylight come and come back to my room, and I would just stare. And those moments of just talking to the sea or talking to the mountain, that somehow I think has permanently kept them inside me. So whenever I want, I can go back to that mountain, that sea inside me whenever I want. I can just shut off everything and I can just feel that mountain inside me, and I just feel one. And in that moment, actually, I get all my answers, which is actually not having an answer. Sometimes we just fret upon having answers, like I want to know what is going to happen. You just need not know. You just have to be vulnerable and let life happen to you, and nothing is going to change. It's all going to go. The world is not going to fall down because of you or anything. So you just keep doing you. You just being you, and that silence is very important, even in terms of music, even in terms of this first edition arts, they have released a series of concerts of artists. TM Krishna has sung Maya Malavola in one of the concerts. He has sung Srinath Adi Guru Go Jayati. Okay, and in that, when there is this the charana part comes of Maya Maya Prapancha, he just stops singing, and for 3 minutes he just closes his eyes and he just sits. And even on a YouTube video, you feel that resonate with you so much. I think that silence, I don't know. I think that is what for me. I tell my students also, whoever learning from me, whatever you sing, that is not the music. Actually, it's the silence that comes after what you sing. That is the music that tells what is the quality of your music. After you finish singing, the resonation of silence that you create, I think that talks about what an artist you are. So, can an artist carry back that music in his silence with him? If he can, that is what when I listen to a rendition of Vrindama does to me. I switch it off, and that uh,
Still no.
Ososi or Ninu Juchi just keeps, like waves. It keeps ringing in me. And what kind of artistry that must be to create that? Rashid Khan or anybody. That
Oh
is
yeah.
what they do to you. So I think that
Absolutely.
silence, when you start having this relationship with silence, and if somehow that silence can seep into your art, then there is, I think, nothing more beautiful than that. And sorry, I think that is why even when I look back at how we see the Adi Guru, we call is Dakshinamurti.
Right.
And what does he preach? He preaches silence. The Dakshinamurti Stotra says Mauna Vyakhyan. He teaches silence, and he is ever young because he is teaching silence, and his students are all aged rishis who are learning silence from him. So just imagine if that is the importance of silence. So that is considered as that moment of ecstasy, or that the ultimate truth is what is silence.
Right.
So I think that is why I am in it. I have a like deep romantic relationship with silence,
Silence.
and yeah, it is my muse. So
Yeah.
silence is my muse.
Yeah. Silence is my pursuit, but I'm only like I can only find noise around. So I have a lot to go on the front. Um, but Karthik, ask you a question about and choice of poetic license and creative freedom. All these values, these words have become particularly imperative in the context that we live in today. I want you to comment a little bit about the importance of creative freedom, poetic license, choice?
Poetic license, freedom, these are all very, I think, abstract terms, to be honest, because how I interpret it is very different from what another person interprets it. But where I am right now, for me, what is poetic license is, like I said, at which point do I stop abusing my privilege and appropriating something else? So as long as I'm not abusing the power of my privilege and I'm not appropriating something else, then whatever I do is okay. Whatever I do is okay. But it is also true that everything that I say, everything that I create, or everything that I interpret of something may not be liked by everybody. May not be liked by everybody. That is also fine. That is also fine. So if I have the openness to take brickbats from people, then I can go and experiment with my choice, with my poetic license. I can do all that. But then I'll have to be, that strong to take in the criticism from
Prepare.
somebody else also.
Yeah.
From somebody else also. And what am I trying to say? Like, is it just because I want to be different? Am I using this license just because I want to be different, or is there really some purpose? So if I'm singing a Varnam somewhere, I'm going to stop and sing a Alap in between. Why am I doing that? It's just because I want to show that I know Todi brilliantly or Bhairavi brilliantly, or at that moment did the Varnam ask me to do it? And if I feel like, for me, at the end of the day, like even Oprah Winfrey keeps saying, or Maya Angelou keeps saying, there is no formula. Don't stick to any formula. Don't stick to any rules, nothing. Just ask yourself, is it authentic? Are you doing it from a place of authenticity? If you are, then it will be fine.
That is so true. That is so true. Absolutely. Karthik, I just want to interrupt and ask somebody who's listening whether your voice is breaking a little bit for me. So I just want to find out if it's just from my connection, or can somebody just give me a thumbs up?
Actually, even I can't hear your questions. It's quite this thing from you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me do. I don't want to fiddle with it now, so I'm just going to let it be. Can you hear me better?
Yeah. No. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Karthik, I want to move on to this topic about the Naika. Naika emerges as a powerful, strong woman in your interpretation. Do you feel sometimes that traditional content has portrayed Naika in ways that are perhaps not accessible to women? If yes, why is it important to create content and new Naikas that subvert what led sort of systemic gender-based violence?
This is actually a very I think a big academic topic. Okay, that has to do. I think a lot of people have to come together, speak about it, and debate about it. And this is something that needs a lot of churning. For me, when I talk about Naikas, or why I put up that post about Naikas, was because at one point people tell, why do you want to create new compositions? There are already such great compositions. That is what a form is. Like, if that composer had thought about that at that time, would we have those compositions today? So any composition or any piece of literature that we have was contemporary for that era, and it was an act of rebellion for that era. A Tyagaraja Kriti, a Dishitar Kriti, a Shama Shastri Kriti, which for us is a benchmark now, was a rebellion at that era. They went against what was in vogue and created something new in that era, and that has stayed back. So I think even though our whatever we create may not be iconic, it is very important that we keep creating something even today, because all of this has to coexist. We cannot replace the old Naikas with the new whatever we want to create. No, but they have to coexist, and that is how I think art becomes plural and beautiful. And what a woman is, the concept around that has changed. Patriarchy is something we understand now, from something that was ingrained, and we were silenced about it. And the question of morality, the question of what is right, what is wrong, all this has changed. And as
Yeah,
youngsters, when we change, why should not that reflect in our art? Why
absolutely.
should we why should we divorce our art from the realities of what is there today?
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
if an Ayaka I feel is just longing and begging and thinking, I see it as a form of gender violence. Okay, it can be done beautifully, it can be done empoweringly also. But is that option given to a student? Does a teacher give an option? Like just 2 weeks back in Avam, I saw Rama Vedhanathan do the she
Mm.
new Padam, Chaitanya Padam. I just saw the Padam and I wrote this to her. I sent a message to her that I wept and like I sought silence. I just switched off the cap and went on my terrace and just looked at the clouds and I just sat for a moment. And that particular day, I received a very shocking news from a family member who was hospitalized and all that. And I was in a lot of turmoil. And somehow that Padam kept coming back to my
Okay.
hand. And Anarika is so empowered. And she's saying, okay, whatever happens, let it come. There are going to be thorns, there are going to be flowers, and there are going to be sunrise and sunset and everything. But okay, everything is going to be okay. And that kind of was therapeutic to me. Imagine every Nayaka being so empowered, like a Nimatane Mayanura.
Yeah,
Why should it always be Nayaka begging for jewels? Why should it be that? Why can't a
yeah,
current day woman throw the jewels away and say, I don't care for your jewels? Yeah, I
exactly.
don't keep it. I can earn my own jewels. What why can't somebody interpret it that way now? Because that's what dancers are today. Women, they are hardworking professionals who pay for their orchestra, pay for the stage, pay for everything, and and still have to be like, okay, I'm the dancer kind of a thing. And even on stage, they have to always be
Yeah,
sulking, and I find it
yeah,
problematic. And like I said, but you should not do away with it because there is some value for that. It
yeah.
has a history. So that needs to be there. Along with it, create something that is contemporary and, let them both survive together. That is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Shruti says, absolutely to coexist in every way. Absolutely
Yeah,
agree, Shruti.
yeah,
Karthik, I also noticed that patriarchy, the recurring in your narrative. I want to discuss the Great Indian Kitchen because that I watched that, and I want to get your thoughts. And how do you think could art really assist patriarchy in its own way? For instance, have you ever been in a situation where you were probably asked to sing something and not really, and have you had to say no? Have you been through instances like that?
yeah. Yeah. First of all, coming to Great Indian Kitchen is a movie that I loved, and I
Okay.
wrote about it, and I asked people to watch it. As everybody I meet, I'm like, watch it, watch it, watch it, because we need such mirrors.
Yeah.
Such mirrors that show us what we are as a society. For me to talk about patriarchy is at times I tread a very careful path because I am still learning not to be a patriarchal, privileged man. Because no matter what, I realize many moments I am a patriarch still. There are unknowingly, like some very small things you say, and you realize, why did I tell this?
Yeah.
Why did I tell this?
Yeah.
And you see some person walking, and if there is some child, is a laborer child, they're like, hey, what are you doing? Is how they talk. But if there is a rich person, then they're like, hey, what are you talk? So there's class, and then there's the intersectionality of religion. Then there is above all of this is structured on the foundation of patriarchy, the fight for power, and everything we do is somehow related to patriarchy. And so for me, that is like a constant struggle. I observe myself every day, and every day I keep learning. Every day I keep learning about patriarchy. And there have been moments when I've been asked to sing, I have said no. I was once asked to like in a theater this thing context. I was asked to sing a pathos rag or something for a Dalit woman being raped. I said I cannot do that. I don't want to do that. I feel cheap and voyeuristic to enter her world and do those kind of things. I don't enjoy doing those things. And slowly I've started to say no to many things that I feel. don't gel with my idea of what is being patriarchal and is causing gender violence. So it is a learning process, and I think it is something that will take a lot of time for us all to learn and evolve out of.
No, absolutely. I mean, the very fact that we're starting to recognize it, right? The statements that we make, the judgments that we pass, our own, everything, the moment that recognizing it in itself is a great, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, everything has to begin somewhere. So
That's
we are in the I think at the threshold of some change. So I'm at least happy that we are in the threshold of something. A big change is coming. It will
yeah,
take years, but I'm very happy to be in that era where this threshold is, it's creating worldwide, politically, in every way. I think in the idea of what is business and the idea of everything, all of this is controlled by patriarchy.
right.
All of this, if you go deep and into everything is controlled by patriarchy. And now you just you know that you are in that era, that threshold when people are asking questions, and you know that it is just his story. There are not her stories anywhere.
Yeah,
So you want to question, why is
absolutely.
it his story? Where are her stories? And so from there, I think it's a new dawn. And yes, I see big change coming, especially from the next generation. So, and that gives me a lot of hope.
Hope, yeah. Karthik,
Yes.
I have two final questions before we wrap. One is about
Yes.
your relationship with the Kannada language. You speak English, but like obviously you have a very like a close relationship with your language. I want you to talk a little bit about why that connection with your mother tongue is so special, right?
Yeah, because when I speak English, I still feel I'm expressing through a medium that is borrowed. It is an academic way of interacting. And when I speak Kannada, I'm naked. I am this child that was born without clothes, which is open to nature, which is just sitting in my mother's lap and looking at her. I feel like I'm naked. And when I write in Kannada or express something in Kannada or sing something in Kannada, I feel like, yeah, I'm in that womb, in that safety, in that warmth of that mother's womb. And uh, I think people will understand, even if they don't know my language. When a child cries,
Yeah,
everybody wants to go and calm it down.
yeah,
Why?
yeah, yeah.
Because that is the language, right? So,
Correct.
and that grows into the language that you speak to your mother with. So that cry becomes the language you speak to your mother with. You start saying "amma" and you learn. So that language has that raw quality to it that nothing else can bring. So I think that is why for me Kannada is so close and so important.
Right. Finally, one last question before maybe I can ask to ask a couple of questions, Karthik. Is that so on social media, even I have engaged with it the last like 1.5, 2 years more closely. And I sort of, I want to ask you, and I want to talk about how you have a sense of wonderment, right?
Mm, mm.
Constantly at life around, nature around, influences, inspirations, all of that. But often I notice, feel that it is also imperative to feel anger. Because I notice that a lot of people feel anger also. Because they're probably coming from a position of privilege or they're just voyeurs in a certain way. They see everything and they choose to long you can understand that staying silent is actually you're also in some way party to the whole by not speaking up, right? So I want to ask you why artists it's while you need to feel a sense of wonderment, why is it also important to feel a sense of anger and why anger is crucial for 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 change?
Yeah, this is something that I've constantly been bickering about and speaking about. So I always say that at that moment you're on stage or any platform and you open your mouth, you're already political. You're
Hmm.
already political in whatever form. You are, if a woman is going on stage, it is itself politics. It's a
Hmm.
female body on a stage subject to so much of gaze. It is already a politics. It's a political statement there. And the stitch costume she's wearing and the temple jewelry she's wearing, it's all politics again. And people may say no, but it is political. Our existence is political. The way we dress, the way we talk, everything is political. So we may be in denial of it, but it is political. And when you're aware of the politics, I think that brings in so much of value to whatever you say, because anything that I'm saying right now might be creating ripples somewhere else. It's like the butterfly effect. And you have to be certain times responsible about what you're saying and what you're standing up for. And if I have that in me to speak up to something, I think that that is very important that I do. And all artists, according to me, should stand up for something. You can't force anybody to stand up for something because everybody is fighting their own struggle. Everybody, there is a reason why so many people want to speak but can't speak. But it's just not about putting a post or writing, but what you practice in your day-to-day life. If there is a sense of awareness, I think that itself is questioning something. You question yourself, at least, you know. And when you brought about this concept of wonderment and privilege, I flew into recording to Vaibhav's production in December. And at the initial itch for me was to take a picture and say I'm in a plane, you know, with my mask on, traveling to the banana. And at that moment, just asked myself, how many people are following me on Instagram who cannot leave home and are battling to depression because they probably don't have performances, or they're not going to travel anywhere, they don't have money. And is my joy going to trigger something wrong in them? So do I need to really do this? Do I really need? I mean, everybody knows that people are traveling with that. So do you really? So at that moment, I stopped. I said, I don't have to put this kind of post, which is not going to bring a value to anything other than boost my narcissistic ego. So somewhere I question myself that way, and I rather write something that has irritated me or angered me more. And anger is very important, because in that moment of anger is when you break things open and the truth comes out. You know, if Hiranyakashipu did not have anger, he would have never seen Narasimha. You know, the title. That anger is something that actually pushed him to break open the pillar. So that anger is very important for us to see the truth sometimes.
No,
But anger need
absolutely,
not be violent.
absolutely. Karthik, I'm just going to
Yeah.
ask the audience for some, but as we probably take questions, I want to ask you also about, uh, what is it like to constantly be a seeker, and not really know where you're headed, but sort of constantly kind of say that, I talked about this. I talked, we said, this very act of this conversation itself is like a way of just kind of saying, okay, something of purpose today, and we've moved,
Yes.
right? These are just our ways of kind of dealing around us.
Correct.
Why do you think are they constantly seeking and sometimes not knowing which direction you're actually heading? Of like, where am I? Like, how why is it important to constantly keep seeking without like a fixed sort of goal?
Yeah. For me, I think that is so important for me, because when you know something and you walk towards it, I think at the end of the day you lose interest and it becomes boring. So the magic is in not knowing and discovering your own capabilities every day. You know, discovering that, oh, this can happen, this can. So when those things open up to you, I think your joy is multifold, according to me. You know, and sometimes even failing feels like such a joy, because at least I tried and failed. You know, I didn't sit at home and didn't sit to my safety nets. And also it is because it keeps me very grounded.
Mm.
This sense of not being sure keeps me very grounded, and it helps me in observing myself, learning, and there is no hurry to, reach some goal. There is no hurry because I don't know what the goal is. So for me, one day at a time is what I believe in.
Lovely. Karthik, there's one question from Giridhar _ Bharatanatyam. Yeah. He says, what challenges do you face in creating queer music dance space?
Actually, there are no challenges as such. I mean, I just have to write and sing, and it's a composition. But if it is worthy of dance or not is for the dancers to decide. And so the challenge is then ultimately for me, the beauty of it is even when I write a queer piece, it's a human piece at the end of the day. So that can be interpreted as a cisgendered piece, as a transgendered piece, as a non-queer linear piece. It doesn't matter. So it's ultimately it's just poetry. So there is nothing difficult about it. There's not you just have to start, take a pen and force yourself to write
Yeah.
and call it queer because sometimes representation is very important.
Yeah.
So unless I label it that, it will get appropriated by something else.
Yes. Yeah.
So more than writing or composing, it is my labeling that is challenging for me and to force people to see that this label is important. See
Yeah.
it, this label exists. So that is the challenge.
Right. There's a question from Nadi. I think we may get cut in 3 minutes, but
Yeah.
one question from Nadi, which says, what sort of pushback have you?
What sort of pushback?
Yeah. Yeah. Whether about, I think it's political, whether you wanted to, is that a standalone question? Because I'm not able to link it to anything, but this is the question. Anyway, we probably move as a queer artist. What and how what would you do to make it more? Question, Kirtana.
Kids, yeah, for me to make it more inclusive is engage more with the queer community. And more than that, for me, it is about building more allies.
Right.
Allies is more important. So for me, that is it. Talk about it more and build more allies and work more, and that is the only way out.
Right.
Be authentic. Yeah, for me, it boils down to that.
Right. I think, Nadi, what sort of feedback you've seen your work means as far as your work is concerned, have you ever had like, where people have pushed back and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, that happens to everybody. It's a part of life. It's a part of life. I have been pushed back. I've been insulted. I've hurt and all that. And thanks to that. And I'm very grateful to all those experiences because there's nothing better that will teach you than all that.
Lovely. Karthik, this is great. I don't want to proper buy and but thank you so much. It has truly been a very, very special conversation. We appreciate you sharing so much vulnerability. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you, and love keep doing your work. It's all amazing. Thank you, and thanks for all of them who watched.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Okay, bye.